Good day, everyone. All of our viewers out there, thank you all for tuning in. And this is going to be a fabulous event. And I'm so excited to be here opening up the top of the hour of our event today. Again, my name is Michelle D. Clark. And, I'm just a small town girl with big time dreams. And I'm just so happy and grateful that God, He spared me from life threatening situations in order to be able to help other women to manifest those big dreams that I also have. And I grew up in Harvey, Illinois. So I know this is a global event, and y'all probably don't have any idea where Harvey, Illinois is. Well, it's off of the south side of Chicago. It's a suburb. But even though you may not know where that is, you don't have to be a rocket scientist or a reporter on America's Most Wanted to know how Chicago got its nickname Chirac. But instead of slanging dope and all that, I decided to become a hope dealer. So I'm slanging hope, y'all, with my company Lift Nation, where I'm empowering women to live inspired, free, and transform. And so just a little bit of my background. I am trained in trauma therapy. I also have a license in social work. I have my bachelor's in psychology, my master's in social work, and I got my PhD from the School of Hard Knocks. And in addition to that, I'm a mom, y'all. First and foremost, that's my background. And my goal is to be the Harriet Tubman of authenticity. So I can help women, I can help caregivers to break through and break the chains of stereotypes and break through glass ceilings and let go of that baggage of bad decisions and past mistakes. That's what I do. That's what I do. And I help people to heal from whatever it is that they may be going through. I'm a healer and a hope dealer. So let's get down to caregiving. So my topic today is helping us caregivers to learn how to put our masks on first. That's my topic. And today I'm going to give you all some key strategies on how to do that. Before we get into that, though, I want to tell a little about my story. So how I became a caregiver. Well, first of all, I told you already that I'm a mom. So I became a caregiver first, but when I first started carrying my first child. I have two beautiful children, a boy and a girl, and I love them to life. And so just talking about being a parent, that's where my first caregiving experience came in as that. And so it was challenging, y'all, because when I first got married, I got married as a matter of fact, on my 27th birthday. And my husband and I were extremely excited and, young marriage, young couple. He had just turned 30 the day before, and we were super excited. But we were really young, and we thought we could just take on the world, all the way up until the point of when I was pregnant. And they said that I had a condition called vasoprevia with velamentous cord insertion, basically meaning that the vein that connected me and my child was low-lying across my cervix, and that it didn't have the myelin sheath that normally wraps around a vein that keeps it sealed. And so I was spotting. And that was only 3 months into my pregnancy. So I had to go on bed rest. Fast forward the clock. At that point, they told me that I couldn't have a natural delivery, that it would have to be a C-section. And so I had gone into preterm labor. At 29 weeks. They were able to quiet the uterus, only to have 4 weeks later, my blood vessel ruptured and I bled out while I was at home. Rushed to the hospital. They gave us some story that we never wanted to hear, that our child was not going to make it out of the hospital. And if he did, he wouldn't have any kind of quality of life. Well, I'm telling you all, with the grace of God, that my son did live. We contacted everybody across the whole U.S. and beyond, and we all prayed on the day that we were supposed to take him off the ventilator. And God saw fit to continue to breathe life into him. And he is alive till this day, 17 years later. So I don't know if y'all are whooping it up in the background, but woo woo, I'm telling you, I'm super excited that my son is still with us. Now, yes, he was deemed with cerebral palsy. So that has its challenges that comes with it. So basically, because of the hypoxias, which they call it, because of the lack of oxygen to his brain, he had what they call diffuse brain damage. So he doesn't talk and walk like me and you, but he definitely does have a quality of life. And I'm telling you, that little joker, he is so just full of life. and he loves his YouTube and watching educational videos. So he just has brought so much love to us. But I'm going to tell y'all something. Even with all the love that he's brought to us, there still was some stress and some challenges. As a matter of fact, when we were a young marriage, young couple, we already had some stress cracks, if you will, in the wall. And that just really tipped the iceberg. Caring for someone who has that kind of disability, meaning you have to, I had to, not you, I had to, and me and my ex-husband, we're divorced now, but we had to change his pamper. Even to this day, he's not able to go to the bathroom all by himself. He needs assistance. He's tube fed. He doesn't eat by mouth, and he has all these kind of medications and machines and whatnot, a vest machine, nebulizer. We have to draw back medications. And I'm telling you, they basically set us up to look like a hospital. When he first came home, he was on an apnea machine. His brain forgot to tell him to breathe intermittently. So sleep was scarce. And it was just so challenging for us that it actually was one of the things that contributed to our demise of our marriage. And so I want you all to know that being a caregiver, it's not an easy job, but in the long run, it does pay off. And if you are a relative caregiver like I am, you understand how difficult and how challenging it can be. As a matter of fact, according to the AMA, they talked about how relative caregivers can spend up to 32 hours of care for our loved ones, and that's unpaid hours. 32 hours unpaid. And so that's in the midst of us taking care of the things that we have to take care of through the regular day. We still had jobs. We still had things we had to report to. I still had another child we had to deal with or care for, I should say. And it was very challenging. And so some of these things can lead to challenges in our lives that we didn't plan for and didn't expect. And that definitely wasn't something that we planned for. You know, we had the dreams of, yes, having our children and being able to go and do as we please and care and provide for them. And it was very, very stressful. It was hard, y'all. Just keeping it real with you. I was tired. And many times when I got off from work, I just didn't know how I was going to make it through. And so what I did was I just did it. I didn't even think about it. A lot of people say, girl, I don't know how you did it. Well, you just do it. You just pick up the pieces of your life and you just do it. And I think one of the things that also helped me was my background. Yes, I'm a licensed therapist. So when I first said that my initial, meeting with caregiving was with my child, I actually have to take that back. And my first with caregiving was when I was a therapist. And I had to care for all of those children that were placed in my care. Their families came to me for help. And I love every bit of it. And I love caring for the parents. I run a parenting group to help parents to become better parents. And so with that, they are looking for me to care for them. And so that's another avenue of care. Other avenues of care is if you are a professional caregiver, like a nurse or a doctor, or you may work in a facility or do home health care. So all of those avenues, we are placing ourselves not only with having the love of caring for someone else, that altruism that we are giving of ourselves over and over again, but we're also placing ourselves at risk. We're placing ourselves at risk because it's draining and it takes a lot. And I hear the cries of my coworkers, my colleagues, and also of my son's caregiver. Yeah, I have a caregiver. I'm a caregiver and I have a caregiver. In addition to that, I also needed care at one point in time in my life. So going from being a caregiver to my son to needing care. See, what I didn't tell you all is 6 weeks after my divorce finalized, I was stricken with 2 strokes back to back, 2 days apart. I couldn't talk. I couldn't walk. My whole right side was gone. I couldn't use it at all. And within less than 48 hours, God healed me right up. So when I say transform, that's what I'm talking about, y'all. It doesn't take God all day to do what he needs to do. And he brought it back to me. But in that, there still was some recovery period. And I need to have, my mom flew into town and she was a caregiver again for her grown daughter. She had to fly in town, and my sister was here, and they both cared for me. And they cared for my children when I wasn't able to. Turned around, healed from that. 1 year later, stage 2 breast cancer, had to have a mastectomy. And then had to go through reconstruction surgery, had to go through radiation therapy as well. And so with all of those, I was in and out of being able to care for my own kids, and I had to have a caregiver. So I'm able to speak from both sides of the coin. I was able to see the frustration of trying to care for someone who they knew at one point was very self-sufficient and able to care for themselves. And then on the flip side, I was able to be that caregiver for my child, seeing that he was not able to do for himself. And it was draining. It was difficult. So yes, the love was there. And at the same time, the stress was there as well. And so what that places us in a category, it's something called compassion fatigue. Compassion fatigue, you all. Now, some people might think that compassion fatigue and burnout is the same thing, but it's not. See, the American Institute of Stress defines compassion fatigue as the emotional residue of strain of exposure to working with those suffering from consequences of traumatic events, whatever those events may be. And for compassion fatigue, it happens in a shorter amount of time, whereas burnout happens over a period of time. And so, how do you know? It's like, how do I know that I may have compassion fatigue? Well, if you're finding personal concerns are starting to intrude on your personal life or professional life, excuse me, if your personal concerns are starting to intrude on your professional life, you may be experiencing compassion fatigue. If colleagues don't seem to understand what's going on with you, if there's small changes of feeling enormously drained all of a sudden, if you're associating trauma with other people's stress and it affects you so deeply that you can't even recover quickly, if you've lost your sense of hope, you're starting to feel hopeless, you may be having symptoms of compassion fatigue. Something else that they coined back in the 70s is something that's called burnout syndrome. That's right, y'all, burnout syndrome. And so that was first described, and it initially was talking about work-related and symptoms that occur in individuals without any prior history of having any kind of mental or physical challenges or disorders or psychiatric disorders. And there were 3 classic symptoms that they talked about with burnout syndrome, and that was exhaustion, and that's like just generally feeling drained and just not having any excess time to be able to put into any other kind of situation or circumstance in your personal life. The other thing they talked about is depersonalization. And I know this happens a lot in medical facilities or medical centers. And it's unfortunate that a lot of time doctors may not have that good bedside manner because they are just depersonalized and because they're having that burnout syndrome. And so they may have the attitudes of work of just, numbers. Next, I don't know if you've been in a waiting room before and they call out next. And that's kind of the mentality or the attitude they may have. They may be callous or cynical and have interactions that are unprofessional even, or comments about clients that are unprofessional. And again, we may think of them as, oh, crass or rude, and they actually may be suffering from burnt out syndrome. It's real, you all. The next one, the third one that may categorize of symptoms that's classical for burnout syndrome is reduced personal accomplishments. They may feel as if the things that they're doing doesn't really matter. That they, as much as they put in, they still don't feel that reward. They don't feel they're doing enough. They tend to negatively evaluate the worth of their work, feeling insufficient, feeling generalized poor professional self-esteem. Like, I came here to do this job. I see that a lot in my colleagues as social workers, high stress, low pay, long hours, and taking the job home with you. It's very, very challenging. And that could be a sign, a symptom of burnt out syndrome. Now, the next one I want to talk about is something that's more centralized to caregiving, and that's caregiver burnout. So I know you here on the line that are caregivers, you see this if you haven't experienced it yourself. And for the Cancer Center of America, in 2022, they talked about caregiver burnout. That caregiver burnout, that you can have that emotional and physical drain because you may feel fatigued or changes in your appetite or problem sleeping. Emotionally, you may feel sad or anxious, angry or even frustrated. It may express itself in these ways. You may find yourself feeling ill, increased anxiety, depression, irritability, social withdrawal, resentment, even. You may even start to resent the person that you're providing care for. And I'm gonna put a paper clip in that one there because I want to tell you all a quick story. You see, when I was caregiving, as I'm caregiving for my son, there were times I found myself starting to feel resentment. I started to feel angry. First of all, I was angry because I did everything right during my pregnancy. I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, I took my prenatal vitamins, I went to the doctor routinely. I did everything I was supposed to do. When I was supposed to be on bed rest, they put me on bed rest. I laid down. When I had to get up, I was in a wheelchair being wheeled around. If I had to go out to an event or something like that, I had caregivers caring for me. I did everything right. And still, my son, I didn't tell you all this, my son was born dead, y'all. He was born dead. It took them 11 minutes to revive him, and he was on a ventilator for 30 days. He was in the hospital. He was in the hospital for 30 days. He was on a vent for 3 weeks. And it was challenging. And I cried. And I didn't understand why this was happening to me. When we had to take him home, I was scared. Because first of all, it was my first child. In addition to that, I had no history in medical history. My older sister's a doctor, but she wasn't even that kind of a doctor. She's internal medicine. And so to have all this bestowed upon us, it was frightening. And I didn't know what to do. And I was anxious. And then lack of sleep. As caregivers, we don't get a lot of sleep. And I didn't get a lot of sleep. And I was angry and irritable. And then I didn't understand why this had to happen to us. And then I had to move on. And I'm going to talk about some of those strategies coming up here in a moment. Because what I realized is not only did my son have lack of oxygen, and that's what caused his challenges, but I was feeling lack of oxygen because of all of the stress that seemed to be just asphyxiating me. And so that's why I came up with this, to put your mask on first. I don't know if you all have ever been on a plane before, but if you have, and then the flight attendant or maybe the captain will come over the speaker and they'll tell you all if the flight's going to get a little rocky and bumpy, there's going to be a bag that's going to come down. And then there's going to be a mask that's going to come down. And when that mask comes down, before you turn to your neighbor or before you get in the aisleway and try to help somebody else on, you put your mask on first. As caregivers, we deplete ourselves so much. We tap ourselves out till we're almost empty. And that is what happens when we get burned out. We're continuously emptying ourselves out and not replenishing ourselves. Well, I'm telling you today, put your mask on first. It is your time. Your time is now to put your mask on first. So I'm going to give you all some key tips on how you can put your mask on first. So the first thing that you can do is educate yourselves. Educate yourselves on whatever it is that you're helping the patient or the client or your relative with. Educate yourselves. Obviously, if you're a professional caregiver, you're educated in the sense of how to provide the care for them. But we also need to educate ourselves on how to care for ourselves. And so it's twofold. Educate yourself on whatever the dilemma is. So yes, I did a lot of research. Actually, when I was pregnant, I did a lot of research on vasoprevia. I never even heard of it. Never heard of it. Now, I've heard of placenta previa, but I never heard of vasa previa, and it's a very, very rare condition. And so what I had to do was get in those books and get into the internet and find out everything I could about it to try to keep myself and my son safe. And when he was deemed with cerebral palsy, guess what? I had to look into that. I also had to look into ways of how to care for him, how to best provide care for him, all of the machinery that he had and the medications that he had. I had to look into those whenever he would go into the hospital for any kind of pneumonias, because he did have a lot of aspirating pneumonias. I had to educate myself on some of the medications that they wanted to give him. I had to ask the doctors a lot of questions. And that brings me to my next one, is that you have to find a team that you trust. Find a team that you trust. And so we do have a network of teams that we deal with. We have a system of care that we are dealing with that helps us with our son, professionals that we rely upon. The other thing is, do your best to stay organized. If you're a professional caregiver, keep your notes in order. Make sure you have read up on the history. Make sure you have things where they're supposed to go. Because I'm going to tell you one thing. When I'm really stressed out, I just have to stop and take a breath and then look over the things that I need to do. And what I find is when I put things back where they belong, that makes it so much easier for the next go round. And I know as people who are working in the industry, when you have the shift before you that does what they're supposed to do, and then you come onto your shift and you're able to make that shift exchange, it makes it that much more easier for you to start your shift. So yes, I have to put his vest back into the closet. I have to put his machines back where they need to go. I had to put his syringes back where they belong in the refrigerator. I had to make sure that his bags are stocked. So helping to keep myself organized, that is one of the biggest things that helps to keep my stress down and helps me to put my mask on. So the next thing to do to put your mask on and get that oxygen that you need is to accept that your loved one or the people that you're caring for, guess what? They have bad days too. So we have to sometimes accept that this is just a bad day. And I'm going to tell you something. We call my son Master KJ sometimes. And I'll tell you, Master KJ, he used to run the household. And we just sometimes had to realize if he's going to sit down on the floor and not move when we want him to, we just have to allow him to sit there on the floor. It's like, okay, well, you do you, boo, because I can't lift you. He's too heavy for me now. So sometimes he has a bad day and we just have to let that pass, or provide them something to help cheer up their day, to help to shift the mood. But just accepting that sometimes the people that we care for, they have a bad day too. Now this one, to put your mask back on, to put your mask on first, to give yourself some oxygen. Sometimes we have to pause and grieve our loss. As relative caregivers, we have to grieve our loss. And I did that. I cried sometimes. I cried because when we thought about having our children, we thought about our firstborn, we thought about the namesake. It was so challenging to know that he won't have the quality of life that we had hoped and aspired for him to have. Now, he does have a wonderful quality of life for his condition, that he's even ambulatory, and the fact that he's able to express himself in his own verbal way, and that he's able to take in information and understand what we're saying to him. He's a special young man. And at the same time, still had to realize that he wasn't going to play basketball or baseball. He wasn't going to be able to run around with his dad or with me and do the things that we had set out for him to do. He probably wasn't going to go to college, not in the way that we deemed for him to do. Wasn't going to be able to have a career. So we had to come to terms with all of those things. We had to grieve that loss of what I guess we would consider normalcy of life. We had to adjust, and we have a new normal, a new status quo, if you will, of what normal looks like. So we had to grieve that loss of what was and what we thought could be. So that's what we had to do as a relative caregiver in order to put our mask on first. The other thing that you can do, another strategy to put your mask on first, make time for yourself. Make time for yourself. So now we're getting into the strategies that are for us personally, whether you are a relative caregiver or professional caregiver. We have to make time for ourselves. It's so important. Sometimes we're so consumed with the things that we need to do. And as a matter of fact, one of my colleagues, one of my coworkers, she's a relative caregiver. And we had a conversation in the hallway once. And I was saying, girl, you had to make some time for yourself. And she's like, I really can't. I have this to do and that to do, and I'm a part of this, and I do that, and then I had to run home and take care of my mom, and then I had to work, and then she was just naming all the things that she had to do. And not one time in there did she talk about something for herself. She was running on empty. She was depleting herself and not really refilling herself. So if we think about ourselves like that airplane in the sky or like a car riding on the street, if you don't put gas in it, as a matter of fact, this phone right here, you can't see it because of the screen, but I have a phone in my hand. And if we have a phone and we don't plug it back up, what's going to happen, y'all? Absolutely, it's going to die. It's going to go on E, it's going to warn you, and it's going to die out. And guess what? Our bodies give us signals all the time when we are starting to feel that burnout or compassion fatigue or caregiver burnout. Our bodies are telling us that we need to care for ourselves. We need to put our mask on first, and we have to take time for ourselves. And now it may not be a whole day. You might get a chance to take a day off if you are a professional caregiver and use that sick time, or I like to call it wellness time. And if you are a relative caregiver, you might just need to take a walk outside, or maybe sit on the porch for a minute. Maybe watch your favorite show for 30 minutes. Cook something that you enjoy. Meditate, but take at least 30 minutes for yourself. If you can't do 30 minutes a day, do 10 minutes. Start out small, 5 minutes. As a matter of fact, when I am either coaching my clients or if I'm meeting with my clients as a licensed therapist, I tell my clients there's a few things to do. One, stop and breathe. Just breathe. And I'm talking about that deep diaphragmatic breath that comes from the belly. Your belly should extend out and then contract. And when we breathe, as a matter of fact, I want to do that with you all today. See, there's some sure enough practices that I'm going to give you all that you can start today. That's one of them. Just take a moment to breathe. So we're going to breathe in slowly through our nose. We're going to do it on a 4 count. And then we're going to breathe out more slow with a 5 count. We'll do it together, and I'll do it with my fingers as I count. So everybody, I like to do mine with my eyes closed. So go ahead, let's go. All right, open your eyes. I hope you feel this sense of calmness overcome you. And if you don't feel it yet, that's okay. That just may mean that you're more tightly wound. And if you need to stop and repeat, then do that. As a matter of fact, do it for 1 whole minute. And something that I tell my clients that I counsel or that I coach is you can do stacking. So one thing I did was when I closed my eyes, that actually was stacking, where I was able to eliminate everything around me visually. You can put on calming or relaxing music. That's another layering. So now you're eliminating other sounds and you're filling it with positive sounds. You might even have a guided meditation, so that way your mind doesn't wander. So these are things that you can stack to care for yourself and put your mask on first. The next thing is to monitor your own health. Again, our bodies are our signals, and our bodies will tell us what's going on and what's going wrong and when we need to refill. Just like the gas gauge is going to tell you running on E, you have 40 miles left. Our bodies tell us that as well. So it's important for us to do our best to get good rest. That's right, y'all. Do our best to get good rest. So say that rhyme to yourself. When you're starting to feel tired, say, you know what? I'm going to do my best to get good rest. So I'm just going to go lay down for a quick 15 minutes. So if whoever it is that you're caring for, and as long as they don't have any kind of apneas or any kind of situations where you have to monitor them while they're sleeping, if they're resting, it'd be a good time for you to take a rest. If you have to go out to your car, if you're a professional caregiver and you get that 15-minute break, go out to your car, get that quick 15-minute nap, or at least get off your feet for 15 minutes. Eat good meals, have healthy snacks. I know a lot of times it's so challenging. We're on the go, we're taking care of everybody else. But it is so imperative for us to refill ourselves. Both of them, refill ourselves. And so we have to make sure that what we're putting in is not trash, it's not garbage. We have to make sure that it's goodness, because what you put in is going to come out. You know, there's a difference between putting in the regular unleaded and the super. There's a difference in performance. It's the same thing with our bodies. We have to put in that super high octane to keep us going. So making sure that we're eating our fruit and vegetables, making sure that we stay hydrated. I keep my water on deck at all times, making sure we stay hydrated, and making sure that we exercise, even if it's stretching, doing some yoga, riding our bike, taking a walk, but something that's helping to keep us well, like a well-oiled machine. So making sure we do that. And one thing I want to leave you all with is making sure that we stay connected. Stay connected. That may be one of the most important things to do outside of making sure that our health is tip-top shape. Because who we surround ourselves with, it does matter. It matters. When we are feeling drained and tapped out, we may need to tap in and have somebody else come in. And that's why I have a caregiver for my son, because there are some times where I need to tap out and I need to get some other things done. I may need to run to the grocery store. I may need to work. I may need to run my daughter to something that she has to do and provide her care and sit with her and give her her time, because she's the youngest, but she never had that life of being the youngest, because we always had to care for baby boy. It's another term of endearment we call him. So having those people around us, my mom, I love her, and I love my sisters. I love my brother. I love everybody all my family who was rallied around me, everyone who showed me support. I thank you all so much. I want to take this time and stop and thank you so, so much for being there for me. Not only to provide care for my son when I needed a break, but also providing care for me when I needed care. So surrounding ourselves with those positive supports is so, so paramount. It's so, so important. And professional care can be a part of that connection. Yes, professional care, meaning that when I was going through all of this high stress, I sought out therapy. That's right, y'all. A therapist, having a therapist, a life coach, having a life coach. Till this day, I had an oncology social worker who was my counselor at the time when I was going through what I was going through with cancer. And I had a therapist now through a virtual platform. And I also have a coach, a business coach, and I have a life coach. I have mentors. I have people who are helping me. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give you a quick tip. If you have a life coach and they don't have a life coach, run. If you have a therapist and they don't have a therapist, run. How much do they believe in what they're talking about? Everybody needs someone. Oh, I just thought of the song. Everybody needs somebody sometimes. So yes, we do. So surround ourselves with positive people, positive supports, and professional supports to help us. So now I know I said that I was going to leave you with that, but you all have been such a wonderful audience. I want to give you all just a little bit more. Do y'all want a little bit more? I think I heard somebody say, yes, Michelle, yes, Shelly, we want a little bit more. So let me say this. There's a couple of other things that help us to shift our mindset, because sometimes we get stressed out, not just because of the day-to-day things that are stressful, but because our minds are busy. So here are some things that we can do to help our mindset, to shift our minds. One thing we can do is have an attitude of gratitude. It goes so far, y'all. Attitude of gratitude. I want to tell you this quick story. So there's a woman who's in a car. Let's say she's in a Ford, and she looks next to her and she sees somebody driving a Maserati. And she's like, ooh, man, I sure wish I had that Maserati. And then there's a woman on a bike, and she's looking at the woman driving the Ford, and she says, boy, I sure wish I had a car. And then there's a person who's walking, and they're like, man, I sure wish I had that bike. And then there's a woman on a balcony, and she's looking down at all of this, and she's sitting in a wheelchair. And she says, I sure wish I could walk. So my point is that no matter what happens in your life, no matter what you're going through, there's always somebody out there who has it worse. So we have to make sure that we have an attitude of gratitude and be grateful. I'm so happy and grateful today that I am able to breathe on my own. I'm so happy and grateful today that I'm able to provide care for someone else. I'm so happy and grateful today that I have a caregiver. I'm so happy and grateful today that, and you fill in the blank. But be happy and grateful for what you do have, because there's somebody out there who sure wish they had what you had. Another thing is life lessons, y'all. Life lessons. The things that we go through is not just for us. I had to realize that everything that I went through, from, I didn't tell you all this, but from some of the tragedies and traumas that I experienced as a teenager, throughout college, there was sexual assault, there was domestic violence, there was physical assault. I've been through the bit and gambit. Then there was my medical conditions. Then there was my son's tragedy. All of these things happened. And not just for me to keep it to myself. You see, I wouldn't be here today to be able to help somebody else if I did not go through this. I went through this not just to hold it in and to prevail on my own, but now I can share this. I can take my tragedy, turn it into a triumph, and help someone else to transition in their lives. And that's the main reason why I not only gave birth to Lift Life Coaching Solutions, but also now Lift Nation. Yes, living inspired, free, and transformed. And hold on, transformed. I got to put that out there. Is a nation now, because I am helping to heal and lift up the nation. And so I want to close with this. We have to put our masks on first in order for us to be effective caregivers for someone else. And so we have come together, me and a young lady, Keisha E. Newton, have come together with our separate companies, and we formed one company, and it's called Be You. Remember when I talked about being that Harriet Tubman of authenticity? Yes. And it's to help women. My company is to help women to be able to let our hair down and be who we are supposed to be. Matter of fact, if you need to take your hair off, child, do that too. And we have Be You Retreats, which is coming at the end of July 29th and 30th. And we want to invite you all to be there. So that way, as caregivers, you can let your hair down. You can just be you. You don't have to be somebody's caregiver. You don't have to be somebody's mama. You don't have to be nobody's sisters or cousins or wife or anything. You can just be you. You don't have to be a nurse or a doctor. Take all of that off and just shed all of that and just be you. And we're going to have some fabulous treats for you all. We're going to have empowerment hours. We're going to have some fun games and giveaways. And we're looking forward to having you there. And as a matter of fact, we want you all to have this invite. And I want you to text me. Text me at 586-298-2121. And text me Lift Up Caregivers. Lift Up Caregivers. And not only will you get a free exploration and conversation with me, 20 minutes, but you'll also get invited to our retreats. You'll be the first one to get the invite. We're going to have it posted on Eventbrite as it gets closer to the event, and you will get the first know-how. We'll also have some special VIP prizes for those who text me 586-298-2121 and text me Lift Up caregivers will have some special VIP swag and treats for you all who attend our virtual retreat in July. I thank you all so, so much for listening in today and viewing with us. And I'm so glad that I'm so happy and grateful today that I was able to present to you all from my heart about caregiving and helping to put our mask on first. Why? Because we deserve it. Thank you all so much. Again, my name is Michele D. Clark with Lift Nation, where we are empowering women to live inspired, free, and transform. Thank you so much, and God bless.
Yes. Come on through, Michele D. Clark. That was wonderful. Oh my goodness. So much energy, so much information. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh my goodness. I'm just going to keep you here on stage. I'm going to have, when you finish, I'm just going to come on up and say what I have to say. I know in the chat, if y'all have any questions, any comments, put it in the chat, please. Michele D. Clark, come on. Y'all got the BU retreat going on. Please keep me informed and everyone else. I love it. So I just want to I know you shared some things on the stage, but just answer this question for me. What was it that kept you going every day? Because this is real out here in caregiving. So share that with us right quick, please.
Absolutely. I think I have the easy part because I'm a relative caregiver. So, as a relative caregiver, it's my child. It is my child. And just seeing his progression, seeing him from when he was born at 4 pounds and 1 ounce to now where he's at over 100 pounds right now as a 17-year-old, and just seeing that transformation in him, knowing that he was looking to me and his dad. I do want to mention him as well, me and his dad, caring for him every single day without fail. We were rotating. And his mom, she came and she helped us out. And my mom came. And so it was really just everybody rallying together. And so just seeing what it meant for him, the difference between life and death. And that is for real talk, y'all. For my mom likes when I say for real. That's for real talk. Because at any given moment, if we forgot to give him his meds, if we didn't give it to him appropriately, if we didn't provide him the care and the love and support, he literally would have died because he could not do any of those things. Even to this day, he cannot do any of those things for himself. The only thing he can do is suction himself to keep his saliva secretions under control. That's it. And he normally does that under command. He doesn't always spontaneously do it on his own. So making sure that we help to keep him alive, that's what helped. And in those cases where I was a caregiver, as far as a licensed therapist and as far as a life coach, what keeps me going is that aha moment. Seeing that aha moment in my clients, when I can see them turning the corner from tragedy to triumph and transitioning into their manifested whatever God had seen for them, they now see it for themselves. Seeing that purpose-driven life, that is what gives me, it just feels me. You see right now, I'm getting all hyped and amped. So between those two things, loving on my son and just seeing him today and seeing him playing his YouTube and the wheels on the bus go around and around, hearing those little songs and singing along with him. Well, he really doesn't actually like me singing along with him, but seeing the joy in his eyes, that's what does it. And seeing that aha moment in my life, that's what really gets me going, Sherelle.
Wow. Come on, sis. That was beautiful. You know what? I just see you have that excitement in you. He has the best mom in the world. Oh. He couldn't have asked for a better mother. You know what I'm saying? Because as caregiver, we really have to have that heart. And this is what this platform is all about. The heart of a caregiver. Remember this, Proverbs 4:23. The issues of life flow from the heart. Yes. And I'm just paraphrasing. So it says, guard your heart diligently, for the issues of life flow from it. So thank you so much, Michele, for sharing that. That was a heartfelt story. And if anyone want to get in contact with you, gave them the information. But I'm looking forward to that BU retreat. Continue to put that out there. We need that. We need that relaxation. We need
thank you. And also, get away. I'm sorry, Ms. Sherelle. They also
Sure.
can reach me on my Facebook platforms, Michele D. Clark. They also, that's my website as well, and it's Michele, 1L, middle initial, no period, CLARK. So Michele.com. They also can reach me at Clark MD, like Mary David, Clark MD at liftlifecoachingsolutions.com. So I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I'm on LinkedIn. So any way you want to reach me, you can. But definitely send out if you want to check out my website. You also there's a book on there, Hush Breaking the Cycle of Silence Around Sexual Abuse, and so that's another a book that I have out there. But thank you all for giving me this opportunity for talking about caregiving and experience. And Sherelle, you are magnificent. Thank you so much for showing your compassion and your passion for who you are, what you do, and loving on us caregivers. Thank you so much for being there for us.
Amen. Thank you. This is not about me. This is about caregivers, right?
Yes.
This
Amen.
platform is exclusively for caregivers. I
Yes.
know there's other people out there, but this was the platform that God has put on my heart to bring
Yes.
forth exclusively for caregivers. So
Praise
we
the Lord.
thank you, my sister Michele. You be blessed. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for sharing with us.